Hello. We are here for our second edition of Kitchen Bewitchery. And this time we are focusing in on fruits. Fruits. And I am very excited about my fruits, and as I am sure you are, Raven. So let's just get
Did you see
cooking.
what mine is?
What?
Did you see what mine is?
I did. I peed.
Oh, okay. Okay. What a cheater.
I haven't looked at the vegetables, so you can see. Well, I already announced, so I'm always the one who doesn't know.
Aw.
Anyway, so let's get cooking. I'll do mine first, and then you can go second this time. So it's probably gonna even ask. I'm probably gonna have to get. Oh no! It let me share the screen. How nice. Okay, so here we are, and let me start the slideshow. Kitchen Bewitchery, fruits, and it's going to be looking at blackberries and raspberries. I don't like you guys there, although whatever. Okay, so we're going to start with blackberry, which is either, the Latin name is either Rubus fruticosus or Rubus villosus, and there's quite a few varieties. Those are the main two. There's quite a few varieties of all these, but these are the main ones that we talk about. And when you think of a blackberry, this is like what you think of. So this is the image of like the botanical image of a blackberry. And that's what AI thinks blackberry looks like, which isn't terrible. They could be more elongated, I think, but maybe not. Anyway, so the parts used are the berry, of course, and the leaves, and we use the buds and the roots, as you're gonna see. The other names are bramble, brambleberry, bramblekite, brombeer, brummel, bumblecite. What is that? And dewberry is its own, it's called cloudberry and then dewberry, but dewberry is its own kind of hybrid of blackberry and raspberry. That's like another one that I don't really talk about. Is one of them is dewberry. So fingerberry, goutberry, high blackberry, scald head, allegheny, and thimbleberry. And obviously thimbleberry seems more like it would be for a raspberry because I didn't find any names for raspberry in particular. It's all part of this. Oh wait, I'll show. It's all part of the. I'm gonna go back all the way of the Rubus family. So all these berries are Rubus, and so we're just like kind of picking away at the varieties of Rubus, and like when they get to be a certain like variety, we stick them in this category, and when they kind of get to be this way, we stick them in this category, but they're all Rubus. Okay, they just have like one has like these, the difference is like they have like the structures of them, like they have diploid structures or like octoid structures in their berry. And so even the hybrids will have like a hexoid structure because it will have a hybrid of the two. Anyway, that gets way too intense for me. I just like zoned out when I started reading about like diploid structures. I was like, fuck. Anyway, so that's not what I'm here for. If I was here for a botany class, I would like, although I do like botany, but still, like I would have to have a botanist. I'm not going to teach anybody about botany. So correspondences. So the element is water, and I can't see anything now because I have to move you guys all over the place. So the element is water. The planet is Venus. The astrological sign is Aries, and I like it that they stuck a little fire in these because these are brambly as can be. The moon phase, they say it's full to waning. So it's like that closing moon because it is dark and black, and a lot of the references are because of that. The tarot card is the devil, and it's because this is associated with Lucifer, Beelzebub, or devil, Beelzebub, whatever. The devil, but it's also like kind of devilish, like the vines like twist all over, and like so, but they're filled with prickles. And so they're very painful, and so it invites you in to eat the delicious like fruit and then pokes you with its like terrible prey. So the Sabata ritual is the autumn equinox, funerals Imbolc, interestingly, and the Celtic calendar has a time called the vine time that starts at 9/2, like September 2nd. So in the Celtic calendar, it's associated with the vine time.
Mm.
And then the goddesses are the Fae, Brigitte or Brigide, Brigantia, harvest goddesses. And again, usually I don't do anything but goddesses, but I'm going to give a mention out there for Beelzebub. Beelzebub. That's how you say it, Beelzebub, because we'll see why. So plant information. Blackberry is a perennial thorny bush or vine, and it's native to Asia, Europe, North and South America. So it's in Eastern North America, like it's primarily found in Nova Scotia to Ontario, New York, Virginia, North Carolina, and South. So it's like all over the East Coast. And then anywhere you plant it, though, it takes root pretty well. Although you'll see instances if you don't tend it on the East Coast, it will wither a lot easier than it withers on the East Coast. The East Coast isn't very withery, but probably because it's like kudzu like weather. It's all like, anyway. So there's also a dye or ink that people use from it, and it's purpley blue or gray. So there's 9 ounces of the 9 ounces of berries are boiled in 35 ounces of water. You use 2 tablespoons of vinegar or vodka, and then you can use alum as the mordant. And then rubus is actually part of the rose family, just for your reference, if that botany matters to you. And also an interesting little note is that these aren't true berries like grapes or blueberries. Like they aren't in the true berry family. They're made of like these things that I was hinting at, these drupelets. And each druplet has its own seed. As you may well realize, when you eat a raspberry or a blackberry, they are just filled with little seeds that like creep up under your gums. It's very difficult for me to eat some of these things sometimes. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the main cultural import. And I just love this picture. Like it is like one of the all-time best pictures of like Lucifer I've ever seen. Like I'm entranced with it. I want to meet Lucifer. Like if this is Lucifer, give me more. And okay, like so I'm gonna tell you this story. Okay, Lucifer was kicked out of heaven. Okay, this is allegedly. Okay, you don't want to get into trouble with anybody. Allegedly, Lucifer was kicked out of heaven on September 29th, which was old Michaelmas Day. So now they moved Michaelmas Day to 10/11, and that's now the day. But anyway, when he fell to earth, he landed on a blackberry bush, and he like became very upset and irritated by the blackberry bush, and he cursed it. And so wherever you live, like gives it a different flavor of the cursing. So if some say that like he burned them, and so then they became black. Some say that like when he spat on them, they became black, or maybe he just wagged his tail menacingly. And then maybe like kind of like the Rosemary with like the Virgin Mary thing, how she threw her cloak over like the rosemary and it became blue instead of white. This is kind of like that same thing. Like he threw his like menacing Beelzebub cloak over the blackberry and it became black. So the story is that you shouldn't eat it after 9/29, and because so now at that time of year, the blackberries turn black overnight. So it's almost as if they do that. It's almost like they'll be growing and they won't be like the right color. They won't be ripe. And then overnight they'll be ripe. And then very quickly, if you eat them much past like 9/29 or 10/11, they get really watery and not too good. So there is kind of a weird like reality to that story. Like it's not like reality like we have like a picture of Lucifer like we do here. but reality, like they have this story because it tells you not to have blackberries past its due date, and then like they wound up this Luciferian, possibly wound up this Luciferian story to explain why you ought not eat the overripe berries, because they taste like water after the date of their ripeness, which is usually around the time when supposedly Lucifer fell to the ground. So correlation tells us that those two are connected. So then there's also stories and importance with a blackberry in England. And you see how like these like blackberry bushes have grown over, and then they'll root at both ends. So in Dorset, there's this like thing that says, in bramble out cough, here I leave the whooping cough. So in blackberry season is like normally happens during cold season. Again, we have like these correlated events here. And so the lore was that you could pass a sickened baby 7 times under the blackberry bush to cure it of its whooping cough. I do not recommend this as a cure. Same, don't go find yourself a bramble. And anyway, we're gonna, that whole idea of like that arch is gonna come back again as well. So the first fruits. This is important in some cultures, and we have some like discrepancy about what the first fruits are, what we're gonna do with the first fruits. On the Isle of Man, they tell you that you're supposed to leave the first fruits to the fae. So it's called the pixie harvest or the fairy harvest. And if you don't heed this warning, all the rest of the fruit are going to be filled with worms. Okay.
Yeah.
So you don't want wormy fruit, right? So you better leave some for the fae. However, alternatively, in Cornwall, not very far away, they say that the first fruits can cure warts. So warts, fae, I'm, use your best judgment here. Okay, so then there's also, because remember, these blackberries just weren't important, and I tried to get the I tried to like bicker with AI to get it to like do a better rendition, and this is literally the best after like 50. Like I almost got in like a fight with AI. Like trying to tell it and explain to it what I wanted, and it would not make what I wanted. So whatever, this is what we get. So but blackberries were growing in and around indigenous peoples in North America, the First Nations. And so, of course, those people on the East Coast are going to have their own stories and lore. So fiber was used from the stem, and they would make twine out of it. And they also they would, like, just like this picture kind of shows, is that they would line up barricades around the village using huge piles of thorny canes for protection. Okay, so that's one way. So then I've got this huge story, and I have to read it again, another story, because this is a great story. It's the story, it's the First Nations, the Pacific Northwest First Nations story about the raven. Okay, so this is the raven creation story. There was an old miser who claimed everything in nature was his, and the other townsfolk had to stay away from his stuff. Like, it was his salmon, so nobody could like fish in his stream and catch his salmon in his stream. Like, he claimed the stream. It wasn't like the world stream anymore, it was his stream. Like the wood from his tree, he said that like nobody could get the wood because it was his tree. So even he claimed the blackberry, and he said that like it was his bush, and so you couldn't get the blackberry from his bush. Even when his daughter went and she collected blackberries from the bush, he got mad at her, and he got angry, and he said that that bush was his, and that those blackberries were his, and that she had to give them to him. And she even said, "What, the bush gave the blackberries to me," but he didn't care. He didn't want to hear it. He was too much of a miser. And he decided to make sure that nobody would steal any more of his stuff. And so what he had this like brilliant plan, this miser, is that what he was going to do is he was going to go up and he was going to steal the sun and the moon and the stars, and he was going to put them in a box and he was going to put them under his bed. And then that would stop people. If they couldn't see his stuff, they couldn't steal his stuff. So he did this, and the people, of course, they were miserable. The world was cut off from sun and from light. People were like crawling around in the dirt. Everything was terrible. People were sick. So it even reached the attention of Raven, and Raven decided that Raven was going to do something about this. So Raven went into the world and looked around at all the darkness and spotted the miser's daughter searching around in the dark for blackberries. And that special blackberry bush that she got in trouble for the first time, and this whole thing happened about, she was at that very bush. So Raven decided to make himself into a blackberry. And when the daughter ate it, she became pregnant with a baby boy. And the baby boy grew and was born in the darkness. And the boy tormented that grandpa miser. He asked him all sorts of questions, and he was bored and he was curious, and he said why a million different times. And the miser was just beside himself with irritation for this boy. So in desperation, the miser decided that he was going to give this boy this box. And immediately he knew that like he had done the wrong thing, because he told this boy not to tell anybody or take it anywhere. And immediately, like, the boy turned into the raven, flew up in the air with the box, and he put the sun and the moon and the stars back into their rightful place. So that's that. How the sun and the moon and the stars got their rightful place. So then it's also important in the Civil War, interestingly enough. So the North and the South would call truces to pick the fruits and the leaves of the blackberries. And it was said that it had curative properties for dysentery, like among other illnesses, but it said it had curative properties. So like they would call a truce, and people from the North and South just to pick blackberries off the bushes. Sometimes even they pick from the same bush during the truce. So now they're also important to the Celts or the Celts or I cannot say a word that's not my own twangy English. So blackberries were sacred to those people that I can't say their name, the Celts, the Celts, the whatever. So it was part of their sacred fire. So it was the bramble, the rowan, and the yew were part of their sacred fire, and it was the bramble part is like the part of the blackberry. And it's also important again to them. So they had this thing called the blackberry winter. So when a frost came, like if the blackberry had already flowered and it got very cold, then it meant that it was going to be like a late snow and late ice. So it's kind of like the Groundhog Day, like when he comes out and pokes his head. Like if you screw up the blackberries, like the rest of the season's yucky. And the magical property. So it's used for abundance and fortune, money and prosperity. So I'm always looking for money things that are not associated with like weird things, although
Spices and stuff.
Prosperity I get more than money, but prosperity just because it's like it will take over. Like if it gets in, like you cannot get rid of a blackberry bush. Like it can be like intense, and also because it's like filled with thorns, so it's very protective. And anyway, so luck and healing, it's always been used for healing. Remember it's associated with like all that water and like as well. So it's supposed to, like, the thought is that it creeps under and cures disease. And also not only does it creep under, but remember that whole thing about crawling under for the whooping cough. So not only does it creep, like there's two ways you can look at that kind of idiom. It's also associated with death. So it's associated with funerals, and it's also used for the fear of death. It's considered a quote sacred plant, but I'm like, what plants aren't sacred? Irritated. Okay, that one's sacred as opposed to all the other ones that what aren't sacred. Okay, tells me who you are. Tell me. So more magical properties. Okay, so again, protection was obvious. We knew that one was going to come, right? So a wreath of the bramble, rowan, and ivy was formed on a full moon, and it will protect against all evil. Also, another one is to remove evil spirits and send them back. I like this one, actually. You carve the name of your evildoer into a black image candle. Okay, then you place it on a red cloth and you put black salt on it and you wrap it in blackberry leaves. So all this blackness and this like kind of stuff comes so it also from like the black connotation, I'm sure. You're going to tie it with the black ribbon and then you're going to hit this said candle with a hammer, calling the name of the person that's wronged you and whatever you want returned to them. So every couple days, you're going to drag that packet out and you're going to hit it again. And you're going to call it again. And then you're going to bury it in a large hole. The other like iteration to this spell is to hit it every day for 7 days, repeating the name and what you want returned. And then bury it in the graveyard and ask the dead to see that justice be done.
Wait, do you light the candle or do you never light it?
No, you never light the candle. It's just like an
Okay.
I was thinking that too. I'm all, that's weird. You don't even light the candle.
You don't light the
know.
candle. You just bust
Makes
it up.
sense.
You like break it in a million
You
pieces.
smash the candle.
You
Yeah.
smash.
Hey, that's good for you, Raven. No fire.
Hey, that's what I was saying. No
Yeah.
fire for the raven. That's a perfect one. That's
I'll tell you what you do with the candle. You smash it.
I smash it.
Hi.
I'll go throw it in the ocean.
Exactly. I know. That's perfect. So to protect against evil beings or evil being written against you. So that's if evil's being written against you, you can collect back Blackberry on the right phase of the moon. So whatever the right phase of the moon, I would probably say if you want people to shut their mouths, it's going to be a waning moon is my guess. So shut your mouth. The moon, it shuts its mouth. You know it is.
Waning crescent, probably.
Yes, raising, yeah, definitely. That's the perfect time. So Blackberry is an astringent, a depurative, a diuretic, a tonic, and a vulnerary. And I missed a comma, but that's okay. So it's supposed to be good for your stomach because of the whole dysentery thing. Remember that? It's supposed to like help with diarrhea, the roots and the leaves, which again, anything causing diarrhea makes me think it might be constipating the other way. So the root is, yeah. It's also said to be good for enteritis, hemorrhoids, probably because it's astringent, cystitis. The berry and the leaves are good for anemia. And the leaves are purported good blood cleanser. So there's like a root note that I got here that the root is the most astringent part of the blackberry plant is its root. So they have like a special ideas for what to do with the root because of this. So you can use the root to treat sore throats, mouth ulcers, gum inflammation. A decoction of the leaves, though, is useful as a gargle in treating thrush and also makes a good general mouthwash. The presence of large amounts of tannins that give blackberry roots and leaves an astringent effect are useful for treating diarrhea and helpful for soothing sore throats. So there you go. For the throat, also a syrup is made from blackberry, the fruit, and the root bark. So it's a good, like, that's a good syrup for the throat is from blackberry, the fruit, the root bark, and some honey. Again, the sore throat gargle and as a painkiller. The leaves, you can use those externally as an astringent and a toner. It's also good for leukorrhea. Rubus, I think it's any of those astringent. So Rubus ideaeus is.
Should you take a break now that you're
Yes,
at raspberry?
So yes, so before we do this, we are going to take a break and we will come back for part 2.